Jason's eyes snapped open. He was upside down, hanging by the straps of his crash seat. Sparks popped from the ceiling. The control panel of his single-man scout ship was cracked and smoking. Red lights flashed around him. He unbuckled fast. Dropping to the tilted floor with a thud, his head pounded. His mouth tasted like blood and metal. Outside the small broken window, he saw violet skies. 3 moons hung like silver coins above purple trees. Where was he? Shiplog? He whispered. But the AI was dead. Jason crawled to the exit, kicked the emergency hatch. It hissed open with a groan. The air outside smelled sweet, almost too sweet. Warm wind brushed his face. He stepped out and looked around. The planet was alive. Strange plants glowed softly under the sunless sky. Floating lights like jellyfish hovered through the air. His boots crunched over soft, sponge-like ground. He was alone, or so he thought. As he walked away from the wreck, scanning with his broken wrist unit, he saw something strange: footprints. Not his. Not human. Thin and long, almost like bird talons. Fresh. Jason turned around slowly. The jungle behind him was silent. Too silent. He grabbed the emergency flare gun from his belt, just in case. His heart beat faster. The hairs on his arms stood up. That night, he built a fire. Not because he needed heat, but to keep the darkness away. Every sound made him jump. Cracks in the brush. Whispers of movement. He was being watched. Half asleep. His head nodded forward. But then, snap, a branch broke behind him. Jason's eyes shot open. He grabbed the flare gun and turned fast. Nothing, just the trees swaying. The floating lights moving gently. Then another sound. A breath. Behind him, he spun again, froze. A figure stood there. Not human. Tall, slender, glowing skin like silver, mixed with blue. Long white hair flowed over her shoulders, and her eyes, large, glowing green, watched him silently. Jason didn't move. She tilted her head. Took a step closer. He raised the flare gun. The alien female looked down at the weapon and smiled softly. More movement. 2 more stepped out of the trees. They all looked similar: female, elegant, with thin fingers and calm expressions. They whispered in a language Jason didn't understand. Their voices were soft, almost musical. Jason lowered the flare gun slowly. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he said carefully. "I crashed." The first alien came closer. Her glowing hand reached out, touching his chest softly over his heart. She pulled her hand back quickly when she felt it beating. Her eyes widened. She looked at the others and said something in a panicked tone. Then she stepped back and fell to her knees. The others followed. Jason blinked. What the hell? Were they worshipping him? The first alien stood again. She pointed to his chest, then to herself. Then, slowly, she pressed her palm to his. Her skin was warm. Her fingers trembled. Jason felt something. A buzz-like static between them. Not painful, but strange. Then she said something. Just one word. It sounded like Elmari. She pointed to herself. Elmari. Then she pointed at him. Waited. Jason, he said. She repeated it, clumsy on her tongue. Jason. And then she smiled. Jason lowered the flare gun completely. Okay, Elmari. I guess we're friends now. The other 2 came closer. One touched his hair. The other sniffed his arm, giggled, then touched her own face, confused. They were studying him like he was some lost animal. Jason sighed. Yup, totally normal day. The fire crackled beside them. Suddenly, Elmari gestured for him to follow. She pointed to the jungle, then to her chest, then to the sky. Jason hesitated, but then he saw the others waiting patiently. Curious, not hostile. Maybe. This was his only chance. He took a breath, picked up his pack, and followed them into the forest. His footsteps joined theirs, fading into the glowing mist. He didn't know it yet, but he was walking into a world ruled by women where no man had ever walked before. Jason walked deeper into the jungle. Following the glowing alien women, leaves above shimmered like glass in the wind. The ground pulsed gently under his boots, as if the planet itself was alive. The three females walked ahead with grace, almost floating across the roots and moss. The leader, Elmari, turned her head now and then to look at him. She wasn't afraid, but she wasn't smiling either. Her expression was unreadable. Jason tightened the strap on his pack. His water was low. His food was gone. If this was a trap, he wouldn't last long. But something told him it wasn't, single quotes. After almost an hour of walking, the jungle opened. Ahead stood a cluster of stone-like structures shaped like smooth eggs. Glowing vines wrapped each one. Light came from within. The alien village. Elmari raised her hand. Two guards appeared, also female, dressed in woven armor, holding long, silver spears. Their eyes widened when they saw Jason. One stepped forward, sniffed the air, then looked stunned. Elmari said something sharp in her language. The guard bowed her head and moved aside. Jason followed Elmari into the largest structure. It was warm inside. Cushions made of soft fibers lined the ground. Pots of glowing water steamed gently. She gestured for him to sit. Jason sat slowly. The other two females entered behind him, whispering excitedly in their language. One even touched Jason's face gently and giggled when he blinked. Elmari raised her hand again, silencing them. She stepped forward and touched her own chest. Elmari, then she pointed to him. Jason, he repeated. She nodded slowly. Nah, then. She pointed to herself again and said something longer. Elmari Katira, Velen, Jason. Tried to repeat it, and she smiled. The others gasped softly, impressed. Jason glanced between them. Wait a minute. You've really never seen a man before, have you? Elmari tilted her head, confused. He pointed to himself. Man. He pointed to them.
A woman?
The smallest alien, barely taller than his shoulder, copied him. Womb. Jason chuckled. Then Elmari leaned forward, her voice soft. All. Woman. Jason's smile faded slightly. Then, where are your males? The room went quiet. Elmari looked at the floor. One of the others sat beside her and touched her arm. Finally, Elmari said, no. More. Long. Gone. Jason's heart sank. You mean? Your males are extinct. She didn't understand the word, but her sad expression was clear. Jason sat back. That's why they were looking at me like that? I'm the first male you've seen in how long? Elmari held up her hand for fingers, then pointed to the wall where symbols were carved in a spiral. 4 generations. Jason guessed. She nodded once. The youngest alien, curious, moved close too. Jason and sat cross-legged beside him. Her silver blue eyes studied him like he was some kind of ancient creature. Her name, he'd soon learn, was Sa. Si touched her own chest. Sa. Jason smiled. Nice to meet you, Sa. Si. Then she gently touched his hand, then her own. She looked confused. No same, she said. Jason pointed to his chest. Human. Sai tried to say it. Human. Jason nodded. Yes. She whispered something to Elmari, who responded in their native tongue. Jason couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. Warning. Elmari looked at Jason again. Serious this time. You? Dangerous? She asked slowly. Jason blinked. No, I mean, maybe if I have to be. But I don't want to hurt anyone. She stared deep into his eyes. All men, before war, hurt, control. Jason swallowed. Not all. Elmari didn't. Answer? Then she stood and walked outside, motioning for him to follow. He stepped out and looked around the village. Now dozens of alien females were gathering. Young ones, old ones. Some with glowing tattoos on their faces, others with soft fur around their necks. All of them stared at Jason. Whispers flew like birds through the crowd. Many pointed. Some smiled. Some backed away in fear. Mari stood before them and raised her hands. She spoke a long sentence in her own tongue. Then pointed to Jason. Then she said in slow, broken English, "He is last man. Not of us, but not enemy. He is guest." A silence followed. Then one voice, soft and shaky, called from the crowd, "Does he belong to her?" Heads turned. The crowd buzzed louder. Jason looked at Elmari. "What does that mean?" She didn't reply. She just looked away and said nothing. Jason lay on the soft sleeping mat made from woven jungle fibers. The glow from the walls dimmed naturally, responding to the time of night. Outside, strange insects chirped in odd rhythms. But it wasn't the alien sounds keeping him awake. It was the heat and the fact that someone else was in the room. He rolled to his side and saw her, Say, the youngest alien girl, barely past what humans would call teenage, was curled next to him, breathing softly. Her silvery hair spread across the mat like moonlight. Jason blinked. What are you doing here?" She didn't answer. She was asleep. One hand rested lightly against his chest, over his heart again. Jason's mind raced. Was this normal here? Was this some kind of ritual, or just comfort? He moved slightly, trying not to wake her. Too late, Sai's eyes fluttered open. "Warm," she whispered. Jason chuckled awkwardly. "Yeah, humans are warm." Sai looked at his face carefully. "You dream loud." I stayed. Jason sat up a bit. "Sorry, bad dreams, I guess." She nodded, like she understood, though he doubted she did. Then she said something strange. "We bond through skin." Jason frowned. "Excuse me?" She touched her hand to her chest, then gently to his bare arm. "Feel, ... Better," he had to admit. She wasn't wrong. Her touch was calming, comforting even. Not sexual, not aggressive, just pure. Moments later, Elmari entered the room. Her eyes went straight to Sai, then to Jason, then to the small gapless space between them. Jason raised his hands quickly. "It's not what it looks like. She just showed up. I didn't invite her." Elmari's face was unreadable. Then she stepped forward and said softly, "She chose." Jason blinked. "Chose? What?" Elmari paused for a long moment. Then said, "Touch is bond. Sleep is trust." Jason exhaled. "So, I'm like a pillow?" Elmari didn't laugh. To her, you are first piece she knows. Sai sat up and leaned against Jason like a sleepy kitten. Jason was stunned. "Old. Is she?" "Old enough to choose," Elmari said sharply. Jason cleared his throat. Unsure of how to respond, Elmari approached and knelt beside him. "You confuse us." "Believe me," he muttered. "I'm confused too." Elmari reached into a small, woven basket and pulled out a glowing stone, then held it between them. "This shows feeling." The stone glowed faint red when she held it between her fingers. Then she gently placed it against Jason's chest. It burst into bright orange. Elmari gasped. Jason looked down. "Is that good or bad?" "It means you are changing," Elmari whispered. He laughed nervously. "I feel the same." She shook her head. "Not your body, your soul." Jason looked into her alien eyes. He wanted to say it was nonsense, but he couldn't, because deep down, he was feeling something growing. Before he could speak again, shouting erupted outside. Mari stood quickly and stepped out into the violet night. Jason followed. A crowd had gathered near the center of the village. Two alien women were arguing. One, older and tattooed with glowing spirals, pointed toward Jason. Jason could feel her voice dripping with anger even if he didn't understand the words. She says, "You are dangerous." Elmari translated quietly, "That you twist our hearts. That you must leave before we become something new." Jason looked around nervously. Eyes stared at him. Some curious, some hostile. He shook his head. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to crash here." "But you are here," Elmari said, as if it were fate. The angry woman pointed again, shouting something harsh. She says, Elmari translated, "You must be claimed, or cast out." Jason stared at her. Claimed. Elmara's face. "Remain still. One of us must take you as passenger, or the tribe will see you as a threat." Jason laughed out of shock. "That's insane. You don't even know me." Elmari leaned close. "And yet, Say sleeps beside you like a mate." Essay stood a few steps away, wide-eyed, trembling. The crowd grew louder. Elmari looked at Jason seriously. "Do nothing, and they will decide for you." Jason looked around. At the alien women surrounding him, it wasn't desire in their eyes, it was fear. Confusion, something about his presence had disrupted their balance, their calm life. He stepped forward. "I won't hurt anyone," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "I'm not here to take. I just want to survive." The crowd didn't move. Then Say stepped forward and said something firm in their language. Everyone fell silent. Elmara's eyes widened. "What did she say?" Jason asked. "She said," Elmari whispered, "if you must be claimed. She claims you." Asterisk, the jungle air was heavy. Strange clouds moved slowly overhead, glowing with soft pink and gold. But inside the village, the mood was far from peaceful. Jason stood frozen. Dozens of alien women still watched him, their glowing eyes fixed on his every breath. But now, their attention had changed. He had been claimed by Sai. She stood tall beside him, nervous but proud. One hand rested gently on his arm, as if showing the others. "He's mine now." Jason cleared his throat and whispered to Elmari, "What does it mean exactly? This claiming thing?" Elmari didn't answer at first. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold. "It means," she said slowly, "you belong to her." Jason blinked. "What? Like a pet?" "No," she said firmly. "Like a partner, a bondmate. She marked you spiritually." He took a step back. "But I didn't agree. You didn't reject her either," Elmari interrupted, voice sharp. "Our ways are different." Jason looked at Essie, who smiled shyly. He didn't want to hurt her. She didn't seem to understand the weight of what she'd done. The crowd began to scatter, returning to their homes. But whispers followed him everywhere. Later, in the quiet of the shelter, Elmari returned. Her footsteps were slow, her presence heavier than before. Jason stood up. "Look, I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm just trying to survive here." She stared at him. "You changed everything." He swallowed. "I didn't ask to be worshipped or claimed. I know," she said softly, cutting him off. Silence sat between them. Then she stepped closer. "Do you know what happened the last time a male walked on this land?" Jason shook his head. "We had war, fire, the sky burned. The few men who survived destroyed us from within. They turned us against each other." Her voice trembled now. "We chose peace. We became one, gendered by science and will. Our daughters were born without fathers. We didn't need men anymore. Jason sat down slowly. Until me. She nodded. Until you. Jason looked into her glowing green eyes. So what now? You cast me out. Let me die in the forest. No, she said after a long pause. You're under SAE's protection now. But that doesn't mean the others trust you. Jason rubbed his temples. I don't even know how to protect myself. Elmari turned to leave, then stopped. She's young, she said quietly. She doesn't know what this bond means. The older ones. They will test you. Jason frowned. Test me how? My eyes narrowed. They will try to pull you away, seduce you, break you if you give in. SAU will be shamed, and your place here. Gone. Jason stood up. So what do you expect me to do? Elmari turned back toward the door. Sleep with one eye open. Jason, you woke up a village that forgot how to feel. That night, the air was thick with tension. Jason sat by the fire outside his shelter. The glowing logs gave off gentle heat. Across from him, Sai was already curled up on her mat, smiling softly in her sleep. But Jason wasn't calm. He heard soft footsteps. Approaching, another alien woman emerged from the trees. She was older than Sattel, with sharper features. Her skin shimmered like obsidian under moonlight. Her name was Valari. She didn't speak. She simply walked over and sat beside him, uninvited. Jason tensed. Hi. Valari looked at the fire, then at him. You smell like youth, she said softly. Jason blinked. That's a weird thing to say. She leaned closer. Do you know what you've done? What your scent does to us? He pulled back slightly. Like you're making it sound like I'm some drug. She smiled. Not drug. Catalyst. Jason stood. I think you should leave. Valari rose too. Say is a child. She doesn't understand the bond. You need someone stronger. Someone who can handle the fire inside you. Jason stepped between her and the shelter. I said leave. Smile faded. Her eyes darkened. You will regret choosing innocence. She turned and vanished into the forest, leaving behind only the echo of her challenge. Jason looked back at the shelter. Sai was still sleeping peacefully. Unaware of what had just happened, he sat down slowly and whispered to himself, I didn't come here to change anything. But everything had already begun to change. The drums began just after sunset. Not loud, not wild. Just steady like a heartbeat echoing across the alien village. Jason stood outside the round shelter, watching as glowing figures moved silently through the jungle paths. Each female wore a different color of glowing paintsum on their faces, others across their bare arms and legs. They looked like warriors, dancers, or maybe both. He turned as Sie approached him. She was dressed in thin silver wraps that shimmered under the moonlight. Her hair had been braided, her forehead marked with a soft glowing blue line. She looked up at him nervously. You come, she whispered. Ceremony waits. Jason swallowed. You mean? The ritual Elmari warned me about? Sa nodded. Bond must be shown. Proven. He didn't like the sound of that as they walked toward the center of the village. Jason felt hundreds of glowing eyes settle on him again. But this time, something was different. Expectation, hunger, judgment. A large circle had been formed around a fire. The flames danced blue and white, reaching high. On the far side of the fire stood Elmari, wearing a simple robe of vine thread. Her arms folded. Her face gave nothing away. Beside her was the older woman Valari. Jason's stomach tightened. Si led him to the center and gestured for him to kneel. Do not fear, she whispered. Just trust me. Jason knelt. The fire warmed his face, but his hands were cold. L-Mari stepped forward and raised her hand. "This night," she said, speaking slowly so Jason could understand, "we honor the ancient way, before we knew machines, before we knew walls. When bond was life, and fire was witness." She pointed to Jason. "This male stranger to our land has been chosen. But the bond must be seen." Whispers ran through the crowd. L-Mari continued. 3 steps. 1 heart, 1 flame. If the bond is weak, the fire will show it. If it is strong, he will remain. Jason stood, confused. "What do you mean by before?" He could finish. L-Mari pointed to a shallow bowl beside the fire. "Step 1, she said. Drink of her warmth." Say knelt beside him and handed him a cup made of glowing leaves. Inside was a thick, warm liquid. It smelled sweet, but also strange, like spices and soil. Jason hesitated. Sai looked into his eyes. "It is safe. It is me." Jason blinked. "What?" L-Mari said firmly. "Her essence, her offering, her trust." He understood now. Was symbolic, maybe even sacred. He raised the cup, looked at Sai once more and drank. The taste was strange. Not bad, just foreign. It tingled as it slid down his throat. His chest felt warm instantly, like a fire had been lit inside him. The crowd murmured. L-Mari nodded. Step 2. Share the fire. Sai reached for a small flame from the central fire, using a curved metal shell. She carried it slowly to Jason and held it near his hand. Jason didn't understand what to do. Sai took his hand gently and pressed her fingers into his palm, then touched the flame. With both of them, it burned, but not in the way he expected. The fire didn't scorch his skin, it glowed across both of their hands like light passing through glass. Suddenly, the flame shifted color from blue to deep violet. The crowd gasped. L-Mari's eyes widened slightly. "Final step," she said. "Choose, before all." Now Jason really was confused. Valari stepped into the ring. Her robe shimmered like water. She walked up beside Sie and stood tall. "I challenge," she said. Jason's pulse jumped. "Challenge what?" L-Mari looked. Between them, she offers herself as stronger mate. "It is your choice." Sai looked down, silent. Jason stared at Valari. "You already tried to tempt me. This isn't a test. It's control." Valari smirked. "I offer power. You'll be mine, but you'll be safe." Then Jason looked at Sai. She didn't beg, didn't speak. Just looked into his eyes, open and full of hope, but also fear. He turned to L-Mari. "If I refuse them both, what happens?" "You leave," she said. "Alone, no protection, no shelter." Jason looked at the fire, Kata women surrounding him. He hadn't asked for this world, but it had become his. He stepped forward and gently took Sad's hand. "I choose her," he said. Sad's eyes welled. With tears, the flame between them exploded upward in violet and gold. The crowd shouted in awe. Valari's face twisted with silent anger. She turned away. L-Mari stepped forward and placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "The bond is true," she said softly. The flame had faded, but its light stayed in Jason's chest. Sai hadn't stopped smiling since the ritual. Her hand stayed gently in his, and her eyes kept searching his face as if afraid he might vanish. But Jason's mind was somewhere else, on the blinking signal coming from his pack. He had fixed it. The distress beacon. A rescue team would find him now. He was going home. If you wanted to. L-Mari watched him from a distance, not with jealousy, not with hatred, but with something far more complicated. Knowing that night, as SAE slept wrapped in soft vines and warmth beside him. Jason stood outside, alone under the stars. He pressed the beacon button again. The tiny light blinked green dot signal sent. They were coming, Jason, a voice said behind him. He turned. Elmari stood there, arms crossed, but her voice was gentle. You will leave? Jason hesitated. I should. My people will come. They'll be looking for me. She stepped beside him, looking up at the moons. And what will you tell them about us? He glanced at her. The truth, that I found something here. Something I never expected. Elmari tilted her head. Will they believe you? He smiled. Weakly, they'll call me crazy. Or lucky. She nodded slowly. You carry more than stories now. Jason looked down at the faint violet glow still shining across his palm. The bond mark from the fire ritual. You mean this? Elmari touched her own palm. The bond is not just fire and drink. It is memory. SAE gave you part of her mind. Jason blinked. Wait. She will feel your pain, your joy, your absence. Jason stepped back slightly. You mean? If I leave, she will break. Silence stretched between them. Elmari turned to go. You were sent here by accident, but some accidents are the work of the stars. As she disappeared into the dark, Jason looked up and froze dead in the sky, just above the tallest trees. A shape was descending, silver, clean. Engine lights flashing. A rescue ship. Jason ran toward the edge of the village. Lights from the ship cut through the jungle canopy. A voice came from a speaker overhead. Scout pilot Jason Morrow. This is Earth vessel Hope Crining. Your signal was received. Prepare for pickup. He stopped. Hope Cry-9. He hadn't heard that name in months. Maybe longer. Behind him, Sa appeared at the edge of the path, sleepy-eyed, still barefoot. She stared at the ship, confused. Jason looked at her, at the glowing village behind her, at the soft world that had made space for him. When no one else did, he looked back at the ship. Then the voice called again. You have 60 seconds to confirm extraction. Respond. Now or a signal will cancel. Jason's throat was dry. He reached for his wrist unit and slowly pressed the comms button. Hope Crining, this is Jason Morrow. The voice answered quickly. Jason, we've got you. Hang tight. We'll lower a cable. Is it safe to land? Jason looked at Sai again. She walked closer now. Her eyes filled with silent fear. She said nothing. Just looked at him, trembling. Jason raised the mic again. Negative? Repeat that, the voice said. Jason's voice was steady. Negative. I'm not leaving. Silence. Jason, we don't understand. You've been missing for months. You're in alien territory. You don't know what these beings are. Jason glanced at SAE, who had now reached him and clutched his hand. I do know, he said. They saved me. They made me one of them. And I gave my word. The voice on the speaker went quiet again. Then, understood. Signal closed. Earth out. The ship hovered for a few moments longer. Then, silently, it turned and disappeared into the sky. Jason let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Sa was still holding his hand tightly. They were your family. Jason nodded slowly. Yeah, but I think I found a new one here. She blinked quickly. You stay. He smiled, warmth in his chest. I stay. Suddenly, voices echoed from the jungle. Elmari and others had come to watch from the trees. They had seen the ship, seen his decision. Elmari stepped forward. You chose this place, but you also chose our future. Jason frowned. What do you mean? She looked toward the jungle. The galaxy knows a male has survived here. They will come. Some will want to meet you. Others will want to take you. Jason narrowed his eyes. Then I won't just be part of this tribe. I'll protect it.